transfers in the future. And speaking of that, our friends Middlesbrough are back. And I figured
Friends,
you would have had a Middlesbrough scarf
friends.
for your comments, as a an apology here. After
Apology for
taking
what? For being right?
for pissing off our friends in England. The
You love to piss
the
them off.
I never once. I am very good friends with the Euro snobs. Um, the they after the very successful Aiden Morris move, which everybody agrees was the right decision. They came back for Max Arfsten, and they had a $3 million bid turned down swiftly and immediately, according to Tom Bogert. Right move, wrong move. Just remember, you may get clipped here. So let's have some respect and some decorum, if you will.
Yeah, that doesn't get views on the clips. Um, I still stand by the fact that I think Aiden Morris is too good for Middlesbrough, but to each their own. You can clip that and post it again. However, insert the meme of the ref. However, I actually would really like the move for Arsenal to Middlesbrough, like a lot more, because we're talking about two different qualities of players, right? Like, yes, they're coming from the same team, kind of a similar situation, like grew as a player through the crew. However, we're talking about, again, I'm using however too much. We're talking about Aiden Morris, who was a guy that right before his move, we were talking about as a team of the season player. Max Arfsten, for as much as he's had a rise this season, to me, is not in the conversation as a team of the year player. So I think Arfsten is a good landing spot for a championship side. And I think Middlesbrough is one of the slightly better championship sides. I don't necessarily think that they're, a threat to like win the league, but I think that they're capable of making it into the playoff. And the biggest thing for me, because Max Arfson is a very system, what's the right way to say this? His
System-based player.
success is very system based,
Yeah,
is the way I'll say it. Because like I think he proved with the USMNT he cannot be relied upon week in week out in a back four. He needs to be a wing back. And Middlesbrough play with three center backs and wing backs, or however you want to consider it. Maybe they consider them left mids, right mids, whatever. So I think he would fit in perfectly on that team. And I think it's a good, I think the quality level is very good for him. So I would be happy to see him go there. I'm also happy that Columbus rejected the bid because I think they can get a little bit more for him.
I'll have you know, Middlesbrough tied for first in the league right now. So talk about they can't win the league. They are literally within touching distance, and I would like some respect. Okay, I would like some respect. You know who was right? The guy who
Who?
said that Derby County wasn't going to be competing for many top spots. It might be in a relegation battle. You know where they are? 23rd out of 24th. Yeah, yeah.
You,
Let's talk about who knows ball and who's a Euro snob. Okay, let's make this clear. Okay. God, I love this. I love it so much. We just
there's
need to
the
talk.
intro clip right there.
We need a championship pod. That's what we need. We need to go in and just talk about everything we know about the championship, which is
Which is nothing.
nothing.
We know
and just
nothing.
and just talk so confidently. Because you know what? That's how the USMNT Twitter gets started. You don't know anything, but if you say it confidently enough, people believe you. So we could be a championship pod.
We
Spin-off.
could be the USMNT equivalent of the championship, which
Spin-off.
I love that.
Spin-off.
I love that.
Oh man. Listen, the biggest thing for me is that I believe that this, first off, put the USMNT Twitter into a tizzy, which we love. We love to see these things, right? Because 3 weeks ago, Max Arfsten should have never put the jersey on for USMNT ever again. I mean, if you even had the thought that he should be a USMNT player in anything but Camp Cupcake, you didn't know ball and you were out of your mind. But the second that Columbus Crew say no, we're not going to do that in the current part of our season. Everybody on USMNT Twitter is apparently finding out that MLS is holding back their most promising players from reaching their potential and all this other stuff. Pick a side, losers. Do you understand? Like, what are we doing? You either are against him being on the USMNT, or you think he's promising and has potential. But you can't have both sides of the equation. You can't. I that blew my mind. But one of the things that I really enjoyed about this, and want to get your thoughts, was regardless of the calendar situation, because people are coming out and be like, oh well, with the calendar and the way the calendar is set up, this is one of the downfalls is that teams aren't selling their players before the playoff push. Some may say that's a good thing, and I say that's a good thing. The idea that teams are now saying, yep, instead of having an MLS team say, yep, we're going to take a quick payday for a kid to go to Europe who is our one of our most prolific attackers right now. In the middle of our playoff push, in the middle of our shield chase, in the middle of our quest for another MLS Cup, we're going to hold him so that we can win games. Plain and simple. I love that because that is what MLS 4.0 needs to look like. Regardless of what the calendar looks like, regardless of who we're bringing in, big names, whatever, MLS needs to start prioritizing themselves, winning games, and putting priority on the league. Because one of the things that I believe is that if you have a group of, I'm going to use the term casual fans, who are watching your team for a year and say, oh my God, this Max Arfsten guy is great, or insert any other really good player here. And then right as you're about to go into a playoff push, you sell him for relatively a bucket of balls and, a bag of chips. They're instantly gonna be like, this league isn't serious, right? We're about to go try and win a couple of trophies, shields, whatever. And you're selling our best players because, why? Why would I support this team then? Because nobody else does that. We wouldn't, Man City wouldn't sell Erling Haaland in the last 10 games of their push to the Premier League title, right? Like that's the sort of mindset you have to go with. So the more that we put our emphasis on our league and winning leagues and winning trophies and being a good team, I think the better that is for retention of the fan, I guess, for lack of a better term.
I mean, I think it's a double-edged sword. I agree with what you're saying, and that we shouldn't just be 100% a selling league where we just sell any chance that we get anytime you get a semi-decent offer, regardless of what's going on in the league. But I also do think like we're talking about issues if we're consistently getting lower prices in the winter months because we're only willing to sell then. And I think you would theoretically I think you would most likely get worse prices in the winter months because teams are just not willing to spend as much in the middle of the season.
By the way, this is not me defending against a calendar change, by the way. Like, I'm not saying, like, oh, we should do this because now we have, no, change the calendar. And then when people want to go buy your players, they're paying, premium prices end of the season. You don't have to worry about it. That's one of the positives of the calendar change. I'm not here defending the fact that we have a different calendar because of something like this. But at the end of the day, right, like, I think to me, if we were to change the calendar and line up with everything, it would be beneficial to us to say we have a valuation for this player you need to meet, and if you don't meet it, we are going to keep him, and we don't really care. Because that to me, I don't think people like to support teams that are just constant. And I again, from a Red Bull perspective, I don't think teams love to support teams that are just constantly flipping over to sell to Europe or to sell to South America or whatever. Because at that point, what's the point if you are constantly finishing ninth, 10th, third, fourth, and you don't actually care about winning the trophy? And I'm not saying Columbus doesn't care about winning the trophy. We know they do. But in the grand scheme of MLS, if you've got teams that are just here to be talent producers for a national team or whatever, you don't get that fan retention and you don't get to climb as a league. So I'm always all for keep the player until your valuation is met and until your needs are met, right? You have a backup in place, or you have a backup coming in. You're in a position where it's not going to hurt you in the league or your title chase. All of those boxes get checked. Okay, now you can move on, right? That's kind of my thought is if somebody comes in and says, oh, I want Arfsten for 5 million, but you think that it's going to pay off more down the line if he's with you to win trophies and stuff, and you go that route is kind of my thought process there.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
very cool.